snow seems to be disappearing. We didn't get that extra dump of snow that people were expecting. And with that in mind, what's going on today? Talk about snow, imagining being, I guess, stuck with your vehicle in the middle of nowhere. And this story was interesting as somebody used a drone to help himself get rescued. It's kind of interesting. I've seen something like this before where apparently he attached the phone to his drone to get better reception. This one here says, recently, Lane County Sheriff's Search and Rescue responded to an all too familiar mission, but with a unique twist. A motorist had attempted to traverse a remote road in the U.S. Forest Service Willamette National Forest that is not maintained for winter travel. His vehicle became stuck in the snow and he did not have cell service to call for help. Cell reception is very limited in many forested areas of Lane County. Making his situation worse, his family was out of the country and nobody knew where he had gone or to call for help if he didn't make it home. Regardless of the circumstances leading to a situation, once stranded, this person made several smart decisions. First, he stayed with his vehicle. Rarely does anyone in Oregon die from exposure waiting in their vehicle to be found and rescued, but we have unfortunately seen many poor outcomes from those who chose to walk away. Second, he used some ingenuity to find a way to call for help. The man had a drone with him and attached his cell phone to the drone. He then typed a text message to a trusted person describing his situation and exact location, hit send, and launched the drone several hundred feet into the air. The increased elevation allowed his phone to connect to a tower and send the message, which resulted in our teams being deployed and assisting him out of the situation. And according to this, while he was rescuing him, they found another person that was apparently stranded nearby. So I guess a great use of the tech in general. It kind of brings up that point too. Remember how I said many times people are like, oh, ban it from here and there. What if people use the drone as an essential life tool to save your life? Even here, there's been so many cases where people get lost during hiking trails and unfortunately they die. Can you imagine if everyone had like a drone, for example, where they can just fly it up in the air quickly and say, oh, here I am, to help themselves get out, or in this case, to ask for help? It just seems like so many people, they don't think of that. It's always, no, ban in here, that's the rules and so forth, like in various places. But how about in situations like these? You usually hear nothing from those people. People usually justify over-the-top regulations, say, what if it hits an airplane, etc., etc. I would ask the question here, what if it saves a life where people could use it? Can you imagine that? Like in this case, you're not allowed again to fly this here and there, even though it's so straightforward and it could save someone's life. You have to be consistent, otherwise in general it just comes down to the fact that people want to restrict the tech for whatever reason, and it's not like a quote safety issue in those instances. I guess it was good in this case too, where I guess the guy was either using a controller that had a built-in screen or he had an extra cell phone too, since usually people would need one to operate the drone. But either way, great example of just an everyday person using the tech in a good way, in my opinion. And this was kind of interesting because, as you know, when it comes to tracking drones, DJI has their own Aeroscope hardware, which essentially gives people the location and everything on where the drone is, the operator. But it seems like recently people were saying DJI is discontinuing the production of its Aeroscope project. So you can see people posting like this screenshot here saying the Aeroscope is no longer in production. For the latest in DJI technology, please view our product recommendations below. So what's going on there, huh? Again, a lot of people actually rely on this to do their, I guess, quote, monitoring from officials. And it's interesting here where apparently the person who formerly worked for DJI's legal department, he says here, I don't work there anymore, but probably two reasons in terms of why I guess they discontinued it. In his opinion, it says, it doesn't make sense to continue supporting a feature that was created to assist U.S. security interests when being constantly attacked by U.S. security agencies. And he says, FAA remote ID is being implemented. I still remember that time where they were proposing remote ID standards and DJI was one of the companies proposing, hey, you could use, for example, your smartphone, any average person, you can just pull it out, determine exactly where the operator is or who it is and so forth, because we know people are afraid in terms of what are they doing? Are they spying on me or something like that? Like, it was so crazy and ludicrous in my opinion. But with them exiting out now, would you say that's a good or a bad thing? In hindsight, would you have preferred, for example, a system like that? Because in places like the US, like they say, they're starting to implement things like remote ID. In my opinion, it still remains the same for me anyways. There should be common sense, and it depends on what you're using and how. I think it's ridiculous if you're starting to track, let's just say, drones where they're literally toys, people flying them around trees and so forth in their own property. You require everyone to have this type of tracking device, hardware for it. It's ludicrous. You wouldn't tolerate that for most other things in life in the same category. If you are actually literally transporting people as passengers, then again, be my guest. Treat it like a huge manned aircraft, but not for the regular average individual that's flying something for, quote, fun, that's straightforward. If it is literally just a toy, that is ludicrous to require people to do stuff like this. Because again, there's nothing else in life in the same type of category where you expect people to do the same thing. Can you imagine that for anything else? People riding a bicycle or something like that, we're gonna remote ID you. Oh, you're taking that canoe or something into the water? We're gonna remote ID you too. Like, it's ridiculous, correct? Alright, see you guys later.